if you were able to tune into the keynote from Abhinav, who's our CEO at Postman, you'll have heard him say that our most exciting release has just come out. And a key part of that is public workspaces. And we really see those as a vehicle to help you amplify API engagement. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Nikita has already introduced me, but I'm Matt. I'm part of the solutions engineering team here at Postman. And I'm really excited to talk you through this today. So before we dive right into talking about public workspaces, what is their capability, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of how we got to this point, right? So we'll be covering collections, something that a huge amount of you will be already familiar with. We'll be talking about workspaces as a concept. They existed prior to public workspaces. So what do they really mean? What can they be used for? And then when you take that workspace public, what does that look like? When we have a public workspace, how do we create that engagement? How do we collaborate with our community? How does that work? We'll be covering some of that. And then to end the session, I'll be giving a little demo of a Postman public workspace that we've put together that contains some example collections and is a really good way for you to get into public workspaces and see what they look like. So collections, these are really our best friend when it comes to Postman. And they've existed from nearly right at the start of when Postman has been a thing. And they're a great mechanism for us to be able to reuse API requests. We can go into our collection, find a request we want to run, and execute as many times as we like. If we tweak that request, we save it into the collection, we start to build out a meaningful set of requests. And we didn't get to this point straight away. Initially, Postman was really all about, and still is today, how can we make it really easy to successfully perform an API request? Before Postman, we saw people writing curl commands, writing code just to execute an API request. And the kind of fundamental problems around this is, if it doesn't work, you don't know if the documentation's bad, you don't know if the API itself is bad, or you don't know if your implementation, that curl command you wrote or the code you wrote, is bad. And so Postman acts as this really nice framework to be able to execute a request and say, I know this isn't about me. Either this is documented wrong or there's something actually wrong with the API. And so having a request history kind of replaced a lot of that work you had to put in to make a request work, but we realized that it could go a lot further than that. So collections are the foundation for many things that we do inside Postman today. So they support operations around the entire API lifecycle, from docs, mocks, testing, monitors, etc. Until now, collections has really been the focus point for a lot of people within the Postman platform as to, how do I share something around? I have a set of requests, I want someone else to use them, I'll export a collection and send it elsewhere. And this, to this day, still continues to be a really effective way for you to share APIs and have people engage with them. But we see that moving forward in a much bigger way. Collections can only do so much, right? A collection typically can be a complete set of requests for an API. It can be some tests for an API. It can demonstrate a workflow, but it can't do all of those things, nor can it really fully demonstrate what an API is capable of just on its own. You need more. And so when we start talking about workspaces, this isn't just a concept that exists for the public workspaces that we're talking about this week and at Galaxy. Workspaces have existed within Postman for quite some time now, Before we think about making them public, there's two key things that workspaces really allow us to do, right? So just like a collection helps us stay organized with our requests, we group our requests into logical groups. A workspace is one level up. So it lets us group our collections together in meaningful categories. So instead of loading up Postman and just having a long list of collections on the left-hand side, you can actually start putting some structure to those collections, making them more easy to discover and putting them into those sensible categories. And within a team environment, if you're in an organization that has a Postman team, you'll have found this really useful. So instead of using that model of sharing a single collection around and many people now having the same collection and all those collections ending up on different versions, you have a team workspace where everyone can access all of those collections in the same place. It acts as a central source of truth. So you might have done 2 and 2 at this point and got 4 and realized that moving on from the private and team view, really the next step here is quite obvious as to how can we make these workspaces public? What do we need to do to make those work and be effective? So as of today, any free user within Postman, you don't need a paid account or enterprise plan or anything like that, can take their workspaces and make them public. So if you've got a set of collections that you want to put out there to that community of 13 million who are using the Postman platform, you can go and tweak the visibility of your workspace today and make it available on Postman Explore. And what this is going to do is turn that experience that we see many organizations and teams having success with team workspaces, it's going to turn it into a massively multiplayer experience for the entire public to get into your workspaces and see what's going on. And the way that I see this being really beneficial for engagement with your APIs is about how quickly people can start to find value in your API, how quickly they can do something meaningful, right? So one of the things I like to think about is if I've got a new API that I want to consume, how quickly can I get to hello world? How quickly do I run that first request, right? If I'm given a 90-page PDF, I have to interpret about how that API works. It's going to take me quite some time. If someone sends me a link to a public workspace and there's a set of collections there ready to go, there's a getting started collection I can consume, there's a collection that helps me with auth, there's a good chance I could be doing that in even under a minute. And by having an array of collections within a workspace, we can also start thinking about when do people run their first meaningful workflow. There's a type of activity that they need to perform, or there's a job that they need to perform with your API. If you already have an example of that in place and they can run that entire collection, they're going to be up to speed with your API much sooner. And obviously the great thing about public workspaces, it's allowing you access to those same things we're already familiar with, right? Most people already know how to use Postman. It's already their go-to tool for API discovery. You're just putting the collections in their lap. So there's a few things that make the public workspaces experience really tick and work at scale. And a couple of these features already existed within Postman prior to public workspaces. So these were things that we found were really important and aided the success of people using team workspaces. So for commenting and version control, those have existed within the Postman app for some time now and have enabled teams to closely collaborate in order to move their APIs forward. And when it comes to public workspaces, there is a little bit more that we need to think about, right? So if we're publishing a public workspace, it's all well and good to have a nice link that we can send off to people and say, hey, check out our public workspace. but then that's kind of on you to manage that distribution and build up an audience. And we realized very quickly that we're going to have a lot of organizations, a lot of workspaces that start going public. And so really we can create a central place for those to be found and consumed. So if you go to postman.com/explore today, you're able to go through all of those organizations, all of those workspaces, and you can dive into any of those and start leaving comments. You can make a fork of one of those collections. You can give back to one of those communities. If you spot a bug or something that you think could be improved, you can go ahead and do that. And then finally, when we get into the demo, I'll point this out, but a workspace is not just a point for all your collections to live. It's everything else that you create in Postman as well, be that monitors, mock servers, environments, everything gets packaged up inside a workspace, including any APIs that you build out in our API builder. And the API builder is really a top-level view of all the things that an API that you build in Postman contains. And that comes back to your API schema. So if you're building out an API in Postman and you use a schema, you can generate your collections from there. You get them for free. You don't have to go through that effort of creating collections. And that schema can be a part of your workspace. And anyone who's consuming your workspace from the outside can watch that schema and be notified of changes to it over time. And it means that instead of your consumers being caught out by API change, actually they can understand what is going on and how the API is evolving over time. All right, so we'll switch over into a demo now, and I'll show you a little bit about the Postman public workspace that we've put together. So I'm going to go to postman.com/explore. And this is really the central point for you to get anything that is being published through Postman. So today we're talking about public workspaces. But if you've got a Postman team set up, you can make your profile public. If you've got APIs that you've built out in Postman, you can publish those to our network. All of it is centrally discoverable through postman.com/explore. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, we should see a few featured workspaces. And you can see that even though we opened up public workspaces to beta in just November, I think, we've already got 10,000 that have been sent public. We're going to take a look at this Postman public workspace that we've put together. And we'll dive into the collections tab on the left here. And this is really a huge advancement from where our Postman API documentation was before a public workspace existed. So prior to public workspaces, we published documentation through Postman, of course, for our Postman API collection. So it would show you how you could programmatically do things to your collections, monitors, whatever it is, all the things that you do day to day in the app through the UI. We have an API for that, and you can interact with it. But on its own, that single collection, again, it only tells us so much. It doesn't provide us examples for what can be done with that API, right? It's just a single unit, and we kind of have to take it from there. So what we sought to do within the solutions engineering team at Postman is kind of take some key examples that we've seen for how the Postman API had been used and adopted. And we've put together quite a number of collections that demonstrate that as a means to both, one, say, okay, here's what you can do with the API, and also two, here are some things that you can do with Postman. So this ranges drastically. There's so many different reasons that you could use the Postman API. And we're really covering off scenarios for example, API architects and leads within your organization, thinking about how do they govern APIs within your organization. We've got Some great collections here from Kinlane, who hopefully you were able to catch talk yesterday. And this is using the same sets of endpoints, right? This is pointing at Postman API, but the collection is set up in a way to show you how you could accomplish a specific task. So whilst governance might be really useful to some, for a security team, they might be interested in saying, how can we make sure people who are using Postman in our organization are doing so in best practice and securely, right? And so we have an example collection here that demonstrates how you could use our API to scan all of your environments in Postman to look for keys that might be leaking out, right? We have a collection down at the bottom here called Team Transfer that if you're an administrator of a Postman team and you've got two Postman teams that you want to bring them together, you could execute this collection, which is able to migrate content from one Postman team to another. And again, this is all using Postman's API, and it's just a rich set of collections that show you how you can get this done. So I'd encourage you to come and check out our public workspace. Even if there isn't a specific collection in here that you look at and say, hey, I really need to use that, it's a good place to root around to uncover what do best practice collections look like. How are they structured? How are they named? For test scripts, how are they put together? How are people creating more advanced collections which execute workflows or accomplish specific tasks? So collections is one side of the public workspace, right? And so far we've just been viewing them and seeing what they look like. But we can also take these away for our own consumption and to do what we want, right? So I mentioned that collections can be forked, and it's a really simple process of coming into any given collection and hitting create a fork. And this will let you transport it off to anywhere you'd like. So I can go and play with this in my workspace indefinitely. And if I'm proposing changes and things like that, I can come back later and open a pull request up against the Postman public workspace. And we're really excited to see what people might contribute to our workspace. So finally, I mentioned that a workspace isn't just a place to provide a set of collections. There's also plenty of other things that you can tie in with it. And for us, we're also including the overall view of our API within the API builder. And central to that is an open API schema. So you can actually come in here and take our schema, play around with it if you want, take a look through it. And this is the location that you would come in and actually watch our API so that you can be notified of any changes as it continues to change over time. You can see that we've also got a little watch count here. So we're starting to build in little things that will give you an idea of what that engagement is looking like within your public workspace. So in order to get going with what we've seen today, I'm sure a lot of you will already have a Postman account and be active Postman users, but if not, it's really straightforward to go and sign up on postman.com. That link where I was browsing all of the workspaces and teams again is postman.com/explore. And if you want to check out that Postman public workspace that I was just demonstrating, there's a link here for it. But this would really be a great opportunity for me to plug that search that you saw within postman.com/explore. It's a much easier way to find things, and it searches everything in Postman. It's a global search. So you can open that up and you can find anything from your own content to things which have been published publicly. And so if you just search for Postman public workspace, you'll be able to pull it up straight away instead of worrying about this link. So that's about it for my session today. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to jump over and take a look at the questions in the Slido right now and see if there's a few that we can pick off before we end the session here. So bear with me for just a moment. Great, okay. So I can see a question here around exactly what you can watch. As it stands right now, it is just APIs that you can watch and see how they evolve over time. And really the reason for that is that they are what's central to everything else that is contained within your Postman workspace. So when you build out an API in the API builder, you link together the different collections, mocks, docs, resources. And so it makes most sense to watch the API as a whole, because that covers you for everything that changes from beneath it, right? And so if you're generating collections from your schema, you'll find that it's best just to stay in tune with that rather than trying to stay up to date with a singular collection on its own. Okay, see if we have any other questions. All right, I'm not seeing much else in the chat as things stand at the moment. There might be a few in Slido. Unfortunately, I'm unable to see that at the moment. So if you do have a burning question and you get to drop it in the chat real quick, go ahead and do that. That's what I'm taking a look at. No problem at all, Andrew and Max. I'm glad you enjoyed the content.
Matt, so Mike Ochi has a question. He asks that if I'm sharing my workspace, my team doesn't want all our other stuff visible. Is this a concern? Yeah,
great question. So really, this is going to be around what your workspace strategy looks like. You can create as many workspaces as you like within Postman, and you can decide what type of workspace that is. So you still get to have your private workspaces, which is for just you. You still get to have your team workspaces, which are just internal. And then you can specifically go out of your way to create a workspace which is public. And you'll want to decide which collections you promote or make available in your public workspace. And so you need to think a little bit about the exact process that you go through to launch a workspace. There is some strategy behind that. You won't just want to go and make all of your workspaces public, for example. But yeah, there shouldn't really be any concern. It's quite apparent when you go through that process of making something public, and it can't be done accidentally.
All right, thank you so much, Matt. Thank you everyone for watching this. Thank you for introducing us to public workspaces and also covering some edge cases in such a little time that you had. This has been said before, just to reiterate, public workspaces is one of the biggest product updates to Postman so far. So highly encourage everyone to go to Postman Explore, check out public workspaces. It is now available in production, play around with it. And like we said in the keynote yesterday, feel free to invite your friends and enjoy the public workspace experience. Before I let Matt go, just a quick thing. We have a survey that we have added under Slido, under the polls section, which is just a quick feedback on the session. So please go ahead and give us your feedback. We would love to hear it. And thank you, Matt. Thank you for joining us. If there are any questions, we will let you know. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Nikita. Bye.